Okay, my students, please open your book, page 145, Unit 4, Chapter 1, Lesson 1. If you remember, I talked about this subject before in class, the sun. The sun. Energy from the sun. The sun is Earth's local star, the star at the center of the solar system. It has no permanent features. You remember I asked this question before. Why the sun has no permanent features? Why the sun has no permanent features? Do you remember the answer for this question? Because the sun is a huge ball of very hot gases. Because the sun is a huge ball of very hot gases. Another question about the sun. What is the sun? What is the definition sun? Can you tell me? The sun is a huge ball of very hot gases. Okay, my students, do you remember I asked another question? How does life on Earth depend on the sun? How does life on Earth depend on the sun? The answer question have 2 pointers. Try to pay attention to these pointers, please. Number 1. The sun is the source of almost all energy on Earth. Number 2. The sun's energy is also the source of wind and other weather on Earth. Number 1. The sun is the source of almost all energy on Earth. Example, plants use the sun's energy to make food energy. When an animal eats plants or eats animals that have eaten plants, it gets food energy that comes from the sun. When organisms die, they decay. Some organisms that died long ago became fuels, so the energy that lights many homes and runs most cars came originally from the sun. These are just for information, just for your information. Don't memorize. But number 1 and number 2 must be memorized. Try to pay attention to these pointers. Recall that when the sun's rays strikes Earth's surface, land heats up faster than water. This uneven heating causes weather by producing differences in air pressure. The sun, the underlined red color, just for your information, don't memorize. The sun is the source of most energy on Earth, but where does the sun's energy come from? On Earth, energy often comes from fuel. For example, burning gas or coal produces energy, but the sun's energy doesn't come from burning fuels. It comes from the fusing or combining of small particles to form larger ones. Like all stars, the sun is a huge ball of gas, mostly hydrogen and helium. The temperature at the center of the sun is about 15 million Celsius degree at the temperature and under enormous pressure. The sun is the source of most energy on Earth. The sun is the source of most energy on Earth. Solar energy from the sun travels as waves. Some of these waves can be seen as light, while others can be felt as heat. Particles of hydrogen smash into each other and produce helium. Every time this happens, the sun releases energy as light and heat. If hydrogen particles join together to produce helium, every time this happens, the sun releases energy as light and heat. This process is called fusion. Fusion, very important. Please try pay attention to these points. Or another question. How is energy produced by the sun? How is energy produced by the sun? The answer question. Do you remember? Hydrogen particles fuse or join together to produce helium, releases a huge amount of energy. Do you remember we have shortened the fusion of an amount of hydrogen the size of a pinhead? Do you remember? Hydrogen particles fuse or join together to produce helium, releases a huge amount of energy. The answer question. How is energy produced by the sun? The answer for this question, hydrogen particles fuse or join together to produce helium, releases a huge amount of energy. Please to pay attention to these points, please. Energy from the sun travels in waves. As shown in the illustration below, there are several kinds of waves. Each kind carries a different amount of energy. We see some of the waves as visible light. We feel infrared waves as heat energy. Also, we feel ultraviolet waves present exposure. Exposure to ultraviolet waves is beneficial as they increase the concentration of calcium in bones and build up skin cells. However, too much exposure is harmful as they then or burn the skin. The sun even produces radio waves, which we hear as radio or TV static. Some of the sun's energy, such as X-rays, is harmful to life on Earth, but the atmosphere keeps most of the harmful energy from reaching Earth's surface. How does the sun affect life on Earth? Or how does life on Earth depend on the sun? Both questions have the same answer. Both questions have the same answer, have 2 pointers. Number 1 or number 2? Number 1, the sun is the source, number 1, and number 2. Both questions have same answer. The sun is the source of almost all energy on Earth. Number 2, the sun's energy is also the source of wind and other weather on Earth. Please look at this picture. Solar energy produces differences in air pressure, causing storms such as hurricanes and blizzards. This photograph is a satellite image of a large winter storm. Another picture, please look at. Sometimes particles from the sun stream into space. When these particles reach Earth's atmosphere, they can produce colorful bands of light, such as the aurora borealis, or northern lights. Through the, please look at this picture. Through the process of photosynthesis, plants convert solar energy into food energy. Energy from the sun travels in waves. Please watch this video about this subject.
The Sun and Earth both emit electromagnetic radiation. This movie will help you describe the differences between the types of radiation emitted by the Sun and the Earth. Electromagnetic radiation is energy that travels in the form of electromagnetic waves. Different types of electromagnetic waves carry different amounts of energy. The shorter the wavelength, the more energy carried by the wave. The wavelength of emitted radiation is determined by the temperature of the object it comes from. The higher the temperature, the shorter the wavelength of emitted radiation. The Sun, with its high surface temperature, emits a great deal of high-energy, short wavelength radiation. Energy emitted by the Sun is also referred to as solar or shortwave radiation. Most of solar radiation is the visible light we see with our eyes, but it also includes wavelengths that we cannot see, like the ultraviolet light that causes sunburn. The Earth, however, being much cooler than the Sun, emits lower energy, longer wavelength radiation. Energy emitted by the Earth is also referred to as terrestrial, which means land-based, or long-wave radiation. Although we cannot see long-wave radiation with our eyes, we detect it as heat. In summary, the types of radiation emitted by the Sun and the Earth are determined by their temperatures. The Sun, which is very hot, emits high-energy, short-wave radiation, while the Earth, which is much cooler, emits lower-energy, long-wave radiation. The Sun and Earth both emit electromagnetic.
Please watch another video about fusion.
Hi, my name is Emerald Robinson, and in this What Is video, we're going to talk about nuclear fusion. Keep in mind that fusion is different from fission, which is how we currently generate nuclear energy. During fission, the nuclei of atoms are split apart to release energy. With fusion, the nuclei of atoms are joined or fused together to make a new, heavier nucleus. During this process, a great deal of energy is released. The simplest and most common fusion reaction is the formation of helium from hydrogen. Under normal conditions, positively charged hydrogen protons repel each other. At extremely high temperatures, however, hydrogen molecules can reach speeds high enough to overcome this repellent force. When they collide, they make a molecule of helium and release a vast amount of heat energy. Want to see fusion in action? Look up. Stars, including our Sun, are gigantic fusion reactors. Stars have an enormous mass. The tremendous gravitational force created by this mass produces enough pressure and heat to allow protons to fuse together into the nuclei of heavier atoms. Stars are so massive that there is enough fuel to allow this process to continue for billions of years. Without fusion, there would be nothing in the universe except for hydrogen. All other elements, including the ones in your body, were forged billions of years ago in the cores of stars by fusion. So in a way, you're made of the same stuff as stars. Scientists hope to someday be able to harness nuclear fusion to create usable energy here on Earth. Unlike fission, fusion does not produce very much radioactive waste. It also requires relatively inexpensive materials and is much safer than fission. Also, fusion does not release carbon dioxide, unlike fossil fuels. But because fusion requires temperatures in the order of millions of degrees and extremely high pressures, we won't be able to use it to make energy anytime soon.